Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. You're in my
Okay.
headphones.
Oh,
Yeah. That's interesting that you can hear me though.
oh yeah, I could.
I'm interested on what your ACA events though. I'm ACA events too. What the heck?
We both are.
Sweet. Okay. Um,
Okay. So that's
uh,
why we mute them. I think we should just ask them to stay muted unless they're speaking because I converted it to a meeting, so they should have the ability to turn their stuff on and off.
that's fine. Give it a second. Usually we'll send out like a message to everybody waiting, be like, hello, thank you so much for waiting. We'll get started here in a minute.
Okay.
Hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I see you got the ACA events. Both of you fell for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my camera.
Cool, 36 people, and we are already recording, so this is gonna be one we edit most likely. We usually just let it flow and then it'll be good. It'll be fun.
Okay.
We are at 41. I'm gonna start letting people in.
Okay.
Well, I'll probably just tell him.
Hello, everyone. As you're coming into the space, we've changed the format today. If you've noticed, you can see all your friends on the screen. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Go ahead and mute yourself. You'll be able to unmute yourself if you would like to add your voice to the conversation, just so that everyone can hear. We want to make sure to start on mute. So my host muted me. You'll be able to unmute yourself, though, I promise. Thanks so much for being here. We'll get started in just a moment. We seem to be holding steady at our participant list here. So let's go ahead and get started and make sure that we're using our time well. So first of all, I want to say hi. My name is Erin Lorandos. I am the new Digital Equity Program Manager at ACA. I just joined ACA this last week. I've seen many of you in other spaces, so I'm so happy to see you in this space as well. So today, I wanted to take a little bit of time in a more, conversational way and talk about the currently posted BEAD volumes 1 and 2, specifically volume 2, and in how we see our organizations and our constituents all represented in there from the lens of the Digital Equity Act. So BEAD and DE, of course, work together. We know this. And so I wanted to kind of take some time and hear from you all. What ways do you see your organizations or the people that your organizations serve being represented in that space? So I have to admit to seeding the conversation a little bit with two of our friends from some of the coalitions here in the state. With us today, we have Cindy Hogan from the Arizona Digital Inclusion Network, as well as Steve Peters from the Arizona Broadband Stakeholders Network. And I'd like to have them kind of kick off the conversation just to get our gears working and to start to think about this. And then, of course, we'll have plenty of opportunity for others to chime chime in as well. So if it's all right with you, Cindy, I'd like to start with you. So I just to make sure, you should be able to unmute yourself just fine.
Sure.
And for the rest of the participants, for ease of viewing, I recommend changing your speaker view to who's speaking. Then you'll have a nice big picture of who's talking on the screen. But I'll go ahead and let Cindy provide her feedback. So thank you so much for being here.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Hogan, chair of the Arizona Digital Inclusion Network, or ADIN for short. We're a statewide coalition of digital inclusion practitioners and advocates working to close the digital divide in Arizona. And I want to thank the ACA Broadband Office for your interest and feedback from ADIN. We're very happy to be here. I want to say briefly that I have not had the opportunity to vet today's comments with the ADIN coalition, with the group. So these will be my personal impressions of the BEAD initial plan, volume 2, and we will likely submit a comment letter at a later date. So first of all, it is so terrific to see this historic document in front of us. I'm new to the world of federal funding, and I know that requirements and applications can be daunting and a difficult process. But to see all of this incredible digital equity language in black and white, and to think of it being used across the country just feels like such a great step forward. It really is exciting. And I will say my first impression of this plan is that it will be a fair, open, and competitive process that will hugely benefit the state of Arizona. And I'm just going to launch in with some brief observations and thoughts about it. One of my favorite objectives in the plan is to enhance and coordinate with other investments in social programs, telehealth education, economic equity, and development to increase broadband deployment, affordability, and adoption. I have long felt, since the internet underpins everything we do nowadays, digital inclusion really, I feel, is best approached across agencies, across departments, across sectors, across long-term goals for our society. There's so much interconnection of the internet with the things that we do on a daily basis within our agencies and our lawmaking bodies and our nonprofits and other organizations. So I'm really glad to see that inclusive language in this document. It's also good to see that outreach, engagement, and coordination are planned to be ongoing through BEAD planning and implementation. The federal funding, of course, is going to be a great thing for our state and for the country, but I believe it needs to be coupled with continuous conversation about where we've been, where we want to go, and how we get there. The digital divide has very complex roots and therefore will require complex solutions. And we all need to stay engaged in this process to ensure that the solutions are going to be sustainable. And we may continually need to double back and look at what we've decided in the past as new things come to the fore, and we begin to understand this even better as this process opens up. So I think that's really important. I think this needs to be an ongoing conversation, and I hope you'll all stick with us and stay with it. I'm encouraged by the applicant pre-registration requirements. This seems like a solid list to vet the sub-grantees who will eventually be the ones doing the infrastructure for broadband across the state. I like the idea of the phasing of the application, and the pre-registration sure makes a lot of sense to me. And again, it was a really solid list of requirements. And I have limited experience with federal funding process, so I don't come to this with much previous knowledge, but I'm so glad to see written in so many checks and balances and requirements for accountability from sub-grantees for things like infrastructure cost reasonableness and service affordability and fair labor practices, schedule commitment, equitable workforce development, tribal coordination, all the great buzzwords from where I stand. And so I'm really glad that that's all part of this. I'm also glad that the ACA Broadband Office is developing a cost model that will provide benchmark cost estimates for deployment projects. I think that makes so much sense. And let me see, I'm getting a text here ringing in the background, so I'm losing my spot. I'm also happy to see the strong tie-in with state workforce development efforts, with language that actually states that worker concerns, needs, and aspirations will be consistently heard and addressed. I like seeing the emphasis on local hiring. The ACA Broadband Office commits to actively forging partnerships with organizations that help open pathways for groups such as persons with disabilities, justice-involved youth and adults, rural and tribal communities, veterans, and older adults. I would also like to put in a plug for addressing digital inequities in this arena. I have colleagues in workforce organizations who tell me continuously that if individuals show up regularly to request workforce training or resume assistance or job application assistance who only have a phone. They have no computer at home or internet service, either due to lack of cost or lack of skills or fear of technology or a myriad other reasons. And I believe we often lack substantive internet access is a cause for marginalization in communities. I believe that that's one of the underlying causes. If since the 90s you have never been able to connect to the internet, your life is substantially different than those of us who have. And we often talk in workforce discussions about upskilling, but I am concerned about those who have not even reached the talent pipelines yet, who don't have internet or devices in their homes that would help them to better jobs and opportunities. And I believe removing the barriers that are keeping these individuals from adopting the internet fits in the category of wraparound services, which is also described in this document. If workforce organizations had intake questions that included, do you have a computer at home? Do you have home internet? Do you have basic computer skills? I believe you know a whole lot about a person if you understood the answers to those questions. So I believe we are missing a lot of entrance to the workforce pipeline if we don't ask these questions. And I think it should be considered in the BEAD initial plan. This is, you know, rural individuals, people coming out of justice involved situations. I just think it's really important. Subgrantees are going to be required to participate in both the Affordable Connectivity Program or its successor and the Lifeline program. They will need to provide a low-cost broadband service option for the entirety of their service territories, which is great. They are required to create marketing plans to improve knowledge of the availability of low-cost service options and raise awareness of subsidies such as the ACP. They will also be required to expand on consumer labels for more transparency about speed and data allowances and reliability of their service plans. These are all super important for consumers. And they're also, to my mind, historic asks of the telecom industry, which is great progress to see. The state's outreach to tribes, as laid out in this plan, will be substantial and ongoing. Subgrantees will need to coordinate directly with tribes, obtain letters of support and proof of consent for work on tribal lands. Tribal members will be a key part of the workforce initiative development brought out in this plan. The ACA Broadband Office will provide technical assistance and other resources to tribal governments, and the tribes will also be able to provide guidance and input to the Broadband Office, things that are unique to their own connectivity needs. So they're going to have a much needed two-way communication being fostered, which I feel is historic and so valuable for this effort. Lastly, it was a bit disappointing to realize, as stated in the document, that preliminary analysis indicates insufficient funding will remain for any initiatives beyond the broadband deployment. it's disappointing again, but I think it was a good thing for the ACA Broadband Office to make this determination early to sort of temper our expectations. And I also think this is going to require that we all be diligent about prioritizing the work that is proposed in the upcoming digital equity plan. So that's where the bulk of our dollars for digital equity are going to come from in that subsequent digital equity plan. So by and large, I find this to be a carefully considered document that will move Arizona toward internet for all. I think we all need to commit to its success by staying involved for the long haul. To me, it's really exciting to be even a small part of it. And I'm so grateful that Aaron asked me to join today to give my 2 cents. And I'll yield to Steve Peters.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was an excellent overview, and we are happy to have that feedback. Just for folks who are just joining, so they know what's going on, today we are inviting comments and feedback on the digital equity aspects or potential aspects from the BEAD Volume 2 specifically, but also BEAD Volume 1. It obviously deals a lot more with the infrastructure side of things. To Cindy's point, the digital equity plan will address a lot of this as well. But I just wanted to let everyone know what we were discussing. And yes, Steve, if you are ready to give us a few minutes of your feedback, that would be wonderful. And then we will open up the floor for others to join the conversation as well. Steve, are you still here?
I am still here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to share some of my thoughts. I'm not going to go into a lot of the detail about my thoughts about the plan. We're going to be doing some study sessions and other kinds of things. So I'm going to reserve some of those comments until another time. But I did want to share some thoughts. And I think when we talked, Aaron, you asked, could I share some thoughts about what I'm hearing from folks? And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And it's going to be fairly short, fairly brief, but to hit on some key points. But first of all, I just want to take a second to talk about, and I know many of the people on this call already know about AZBSN, or the Arizona Broadband Stakeholder Digital Access Task Force, but we are a broad coalition. We have state government, local government, nonprofit organizations, education institutions, and so forth who participate in the task force. We do meet at 8 o'clock every Thursday morning. The meetings are open to everybody. We get regular briefings from the State Broadband Office, from the Department of Education, from the State Library, and others. We get updates and presentations on different projects and initiatives that are going on in the state and so forth. I also distribute a newsletter. Usually after every meeting, we share the video and everything. And so I have a newsletter with lots of information about meetings, funding sources, and so forth. And so if you're interested, I'll put my contact information and you're welcome to join. But just specifically on the 27th, we're going to be doing what I'm calling a study session on, on volume 2, on the 27th at noon. Again, that'll be a Zoom meeting. And again, we'll put the information in there and you're all welcome to participate in that. Sandeep, our broadband manager, and Nicole Umayam with NTIA will be presenting, and it's going to be an interactive discussion. So anyway, I don't want to take any more time about that. But so I do want to talk about a couple of key things that I hear and we talk about all the time. One is the issue of changing the dialogue. We still talk a lot about broadband. And it's really important as we work out in communities and we talk to people that we continue to change the dialogue from broadband to broadband and digital inclusion. So the people hear about that all the time. If we don't do that, we continue to talk about broadband. And it's really important that we start changing that vision and that mission. So that's the first thing. Secondly, is that we have to simplify all the language that we use, because we use a lot of governmentese. And those of us who are on this call and others, we know this stuff and we understand it. But for a lot of people out there, whether they're local government representatives or community people, they don't get all of that stuff and they don't have time to read and understand. So it has to be simple language that people understand. So that's a couple of key things. Second thing is that we have to start looking at, BEAD and digital equity funding is going to be great, but it's not going to be sustainable. And so one of the things that we have to look at is what I call a digital inclusion sustainability strategy and digital inclusion ecosystem. That we need to be looking at how are we going to support local communities in doing local planning, local funding, technical support, training and resources so that we're building ongoing capacity after all this digital equity money's gone. If we don't do something to plan for the future, everything will come to a halt. But not everything. There'll be a lot of stuff that'll be ongoing, but a lot of stuff won't continue if we don't have the system in place to be able to do that. So we have to be looking at the state, for example, and I've been a big believer that particularly in the digital equity space, that there's a lot of funding, a lot of infrastructure funding comes from government, but a lot of digital equity funding can very well come from foundations, corporations, and other funding sources, and we have to provide the mechanism to be able to do that. And we actually have in the state a mechanism that can help local communities and organizations. We hear from people all the time, many small communities don't have planning people. They don't have people to do broadband planning and digital equity planning and all of that sort of stuff. So we do need to look at some of the entities that have that capability. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And of course, the ecosystem includes digital navigators, local school districts, libraries, et cetera, that all need to be a part of that. But it also needs to be tied in with the state and state activities on an ongoing basis. So the other thing, a couple of other things is I think we need to start looking at, and I know there's restrictions in BEAD about what you can and can't fund, but regardless, in future, as we provide funding and we request funds, broadband funding, that we need to figure out a way to make sure we include digital inclusion funding and requirements as a part of that. So it's not just, again, not just broadband, but it's digital inclusion as a part of that. And of course, we need to also talk to our broadband providers. I know many of us think that, well, I've heard from a lot of folks that the broadband providers are the evil empire. But I got to tell you that there's a lot of great broadband providers who are doing great work in the state, who are also doing digital equity and digital inclusion. But we need to do a lot more with our broadband providers in looking at how do we help them to understand what their role is in digital inclusion and cyber safety and security, which is a big issue and we need to work on. And I know we're working on a strategy for cyber safety and security because as we're connecting all these people, we're giving people devices and all this stuff. People who've never owned a computer have no idea about what they have to do to protect themselves. And so some of that's going to fall upon the broadband providers, but it's also going to fall on those of us who are out there working with people to help them understand the cyber safety and security issues. And it's becoming, as you all know, becoming more and more of an issue these days. So I think that that's a really important issue. And I mentioned earlier about non-governmental funding sources. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the local First Economic Recovery Center Grant Center, that they do have people who can help you with researching funding sources, that can help you write grants, that can help you manage those grants. And most of the services are free. We're actually going to be having a presentation from them in a couple of weeks, but they're a very great resource. And we need to make sure that we continue to support them and let people know what a great resource they are. Because a lot of organizations, particularly as we move into the next phase and we start sub-grantees, that organizations, if they're going to want funding, they're going to have a plan in place and a budget and all that kind of stuff. And so they need to start working on that now. And then, and I kind of mentioned this earlier about the need to do local community planning. We need to develop local community coordinating bodies. We need to help with developing local organizations. And we need to provide federal and state support and funding for that, for that sort of thing. And of course, we also want to continue to support those great organizations who are, excuse me, who are not, who are refurbishing and distributing thousands of devices, doing a great job with that. And I think that's kind of my quickie overview at this point in time. And again, you're all welcome. I'll put my contact information, and you're welcome to attend our November 27th study session and our future meetings.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate your feedback as well. I don't want to lose anything that's happening in the chat. So anyone who has added anything, any comments there, please do consider unmuting yourself and going ahead and adding your voice to the conversation. Let's go ahead and open it up now and see if there is anyone else who has feedback at this point. I think our first two commenters, did a great job about talking about the intersections of BEAD and DE. If there are specific things that anyone would like to point at in volume 2 especially, we would love to hear that as well. And while you're gathering your thoughts, I would just like to remind you that the official feedback window for BEAD volume 2 does close on the 6th of December, and you can submit comments and feedback through the ACA's website, which we've linked a couple of times. I'll make sure to drop it again in case anyone new has joined. There is a feedback box on there, or there's also the ability to upload a PDF with your comments. The feedback window on BEAD Volume 1 is technically already closed. However, the office is still reviewing any submissions there as well. And we would appreciate any feedback you have from that document be in early December as well. So let's go ahead and see if anyone has anything that they would like to add. I can't see hands raised in this one. So if you want to just unmute yourself, and we'll make sure to give space for everyone.
I'd love to share. Janet here.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a great opportunity for me to, among family and friends, pour out my soul and give just a little bit of feedback from Janet Major personally. And I think it's a big challenge because it's hard for me and other folks who work, whether you be for the University of Arizona or the State Library, it's hard to speak on your own behalf without representing your organization. And it's not appropriate for me to speak on behalf of the University of Arizona as an organization. So I cautiously provide input using a personal email address, and I feel somewhat stifled, and I hope other people are not feeling the same, because speaking up is very important. As an expert, as someone who's been networking in this space, but I need to be sure that I make it clear that I'm representing myself and not my organization. And I think that's really important. The other thing that I think has been really a challenge for me personally is having all of these sessions recorded. I know that, we want to be able to stimulate open conversation, and for me, that's been a challenge as well. So I'm just throwing that out there to the universe. I really want to encourage everybody else who has been hesitant to please hop in, because people don't know what we know. People within our groups and organizations who network on a regular basis, we know how important the fiduciary responsibility is. We know how much of a challenge it is, and that the solutions are very complicated with regards to providers and counties not having money to pay for consultants. I think one of the smartest things that the Arizona Commerce Authority and that we as taxpayers have done is to create broadband planning grants so that communities can have assistance to plan what it is that they know that they need. I really am overall very impressed with the plan. Something that I really do admire is the statewide in-person outreach tour. I look at all 15 counties, and there's so much inequity. How ironic is that? There's so much inequality in terms of what funding has been awarded and what processes have happened and how much further many counties are along. So for instance, you look at all of the emphasis and energy in Maricopa County and mapping and asset mapping and resources. Pima County is also involved in a mapping process and asset management. Arizona Commerce Authority is doing that on a more global scale. I read a press release yesterday that Cochise County is going to be doing a lot of asset mapping in the next year. And I look at the plan and I hear these stories and I go, well, what about the other 12 counties? I mean, you can't help but think, how can we provide equity? How can we be sure that we're reaching everyone? And that's why, you know, the roundtable conversations and the statewide in-person outreach tour is very important because of all of those reasons, and finding out, you know, taking the temperature and the pulse of each of those 15 counties, particularly the ones that we know have not had nearly as much funding or attention. And then the same thing carries through to the tribes. And this has been my personal input to the BEAD Volume 2. I think it's very important as we move forward, and we really do truly want to include input from, again, 22 tribes, 15 counties, 22 tribes, to be able to honestly say that we are gathering input from folks in those communities. I really do think it's important that we reach out to those communities, and to be able to travel there, I know is a challenge. To be able to honestly feel like folks are at the table to be part of the conversation. Something that I spoke to Candace, Amana, and Aaron and Sandeep from long ago about is the fact that I think we really owe it to ourselves and to our tribal members to be sure that we help identifies ways that they can provide input without such a burden. You know, for people to be able to travel to the closest food bank, to the closest library, to the closest cooperative extension center, sure beats driving 2 hours or 3 hours to Phoenix to have input in local government. And, you know, I'm in Tucson, Pima County, and for many years, that's what we did to have a voice in government. We'd had to drive to Maricopa County. Now we still have to go up there and register on a kiosk if we want to speak on behalf of a bill, or if we really want to be actively involved. But how can we do that for tribal members? Well, we need to help them identify and test and provide training for using local resources that will allow them to have a voice in this process. And that's something I think is really important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. I appreciate you adding your feedback. Who else has feedback for us today on Volume 2?
Hey everybody, it's Mariana over here at AZ Strat with Camilla, my coworker, and happy to see a lot of familiar faces. I echo all of the comments so far, very insightful and broad. My comment is very small, detailed, oriented, and it's basically around the concept of affordability, and specifically page 42 of Volume 2. The table that's, I think, rating the sub-grantees. And I was just curious if anyone can help me understand how it started at $55 as like the most affordable, because I feel like for most of the people that are signing up for the affordable, the ACP plans, and are, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, $55 is actually not affordable per month. And we don't know the future of the ACP, so we can't even say, oh, well, that would be like with the $30 discount, maybe affordable. So just curious about that. And that's my own personal comment, as Janet was saying.
So I'm going to give the opportunity to some of the folks who were more involved with the BEAD side of things to answer that. Maggie, I see your hand up. Are you answering this question, or are you?
I was gonna give it a shot, but I see Sandeep is on camera, so I'll shoot it to him.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Maggie, go ahead. No worries. I just sorry, folks. I just finished my lunch, so. So let me go to page 42. We have a lot of scoring in place, so I want to make sure that you said page 42, right?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, page 42, I think it's at the bottom. There's a scoring table about affordability and the points that the sub-grantees are awarded, and actually related to Cindy's comment about marketing. I guess they get an optional 10 points for having a marketing plan, but I mean, I don't think that should be optional, but again, my comments.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still going through Just a second.
I can give sort of a high level background while Sandeep kind of digs into what specifically is in the plan. I mean, I think so as NTIA requires that we provide sort of a low income plan, an affordability plan, and so we've taken sort of the ACP, fully recognizing that there needs to be an increase of funding for that program, and fully intending to advocate, especially from the governor's office, for an increase of that funding for that program, but also kind of needing to meet the NTIA requirements of having an affordable option, sort of independent of whether ACP gets additional funding as well. And so that formula that we used to create the $55 was a formula that a lot of states used based on the poverty line. It was a percentage of the poverty line, and I can't remember what the exact percentage is now, but that's how we determined that number, in line with a lot of other states how they did it, so that we could have we can look at sort of what the market around the country is doing and how people are determining what is reasonable within those plans. We took that poverty line and took a percentage of it to determine that $55.
Yeah, great point, Maggie. So I just want to highlight your question. And if you look at the whole section, there are two kind of project areas we defined. We defined a priority project area, and we defined a non-priority project area. And we're going to discuss all about this in the next Monday session. But in a very high level, the priority project areas are the areas which will eventually get funding for fiber network. So suppose let's take a whole county. Let's take Graham County. If we have 1,000 households, and I'm just throwing a number out here, out of that, 800 of the household or 700 of the household financially makes sense to deploy fiber. Those 800 household or 700 households are the priority project area. The rest of the household, 200 or 300, if it's too expensive to deploy fiber, we have to switch into a different technology. That can be satellite, that can be wireless, and we are defining them as high cost threshold area, meaning it's way above than average cost what we are deploying here in the state. So for those project area, we have to offer a second set of pricing for internet plan. So if you look at two types of priority project areas, non-priority and priority, you will see for priority, we said 1 gig symmetrical, and they have to offer, the ISPs need to offer that for $75. So that's a pretty good pricing, and that's what we get here in Metro Phoenix area. For non-priority project areas where the network deployment cost is really, really high, even though that through wireless or some kind of satellite, the threshold would be 100 by 20. The ISPs at least need to minimum deploy. And the pricing range would be somewhere between $55 to $30. But again, if you go into requirement 18 and 19, where we extensively talked about what Maggie mentioned about low cost and high cost plan, we said for the low cost plan here in the state, 100 by 20, which is the BEAD requirement, we are hoping that ISPs will offer that plan for $30. Basically, that takes, if someone household is eligible for ACP, that makes the internet bill $0. So that's one of our target too. So all this scoring criteria and everything you are seeing, that based on the network cost, how much money we're investing, what's the ROI, we can decrease this amount. I understand that, and that is very important from me personally, not as a state broadband director. We would like to see a very minimal cost or very affordable cost when it comes to internet pricing. But also at the same time, as from the federal government, when we are receiving this money, we are legally basically bound to cover all the household here in the state. So if we don't get a proposal for a project area and that's empty, that is not going to get accepted by NTIA. So we have to create a mixed balance between the finance, between the pricing, and also the project area. So you are seeing basically a result of that.
Thank you. That really helped a lot. And what about the marketing, the optional marketing 10 points?
So we are getting comments from NTIA right now. And one of the comment we got, and the whole BEAD guidelines are really strictly written. And there are areas we would like to show our creativity, but we cannot because of the way guideline is written. So one of the comment we got from NTIA today about volume 2, what we submitted to them for their approval, they said that that's not the appropriate section, or not that. They said it's a great creative idea, but you cannot put it on the affordability section. So we cannot technically force a private company to propose a marketing plan. If they are doing it, it's great. So we will end up taking that off. I'm sorry, we really wanted to go beyond that, but we are trying to fit that into some other section. Probably it would be a great idea to fit that into the local coordination section. If the local government, when they're writing a recommendation letter, if they see a great marketing plan from these ISPs, they can write a recommendation letter and they can get the whole 10 points. So we are looking for areas where we can actually move it instead of putting that in that section. Also, I would like to highlight one thing, and that is the 75 points you see in the scoring criteria. That's not defined by us. That's directly coming from NTIA. The 25 points you see on the second box, that is basically defined by the state broadband office. So a huge chunk of the scoring criteria is also directly coming from federal government, and the state has very limited control over that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure that there's a couple of questions in the chat that it looks like Maggie actually just grabbed one of them, noting that Pinal County was not listed. And actually reviewing that section, there are 2 counties that are not listed. So those are on our list now. Thank you so much. And then Sandeep, since we've got you on the screen, did you want to speak to the other question that's there about the spot where we can see status of projects that are in progress across the state?
Yes. So historically, we did one grant before. Like in 2019, we did a $3 million grant. That was the first grant out of state broadband office. The second grant, what we did almost 18 months ago, is that $100 million investment through capital funding project. We are just signing the contract for those projects, and very soon you will see the shovel-ready projects in your community. We are planning to go through a revamping process for our website, and all these projects, especially the 18 projects we have funded using that $100 million, you will see the progress or what phase it is in our website. So it's coming.
Also, I just wanted
Wonderful.
to make sure, Barry, if you're wondering sort of if it's from the state programs that we administer through the Commerce Authority, or if you're looking at sort of different pockets of funding from different projects. If it's from federal, you can go directly through FCC map, or USDA lists their list of reconnect programs. And if it's private, there's a little bit less information there, which I probably don't have to tell this group that there's not as much information there. But it varies based on sort of where the funding comes from, but we can, as Sandeep mentioned, share what's available from the state side on our website.
Yes, this is Barry. And again, I request my questions probably come from, I'm retired now. I retired in 2020. So I kind of stepped away, but I'm in Apache County, very much an underserved area. And I do understand that the Apache County did receive a significant project grant. I've attended some sessions that have been held, public meetings, but I really haven't seen any work put on the ground. And so I'm just trying to find out, where's work happening, because I believe that was in 2019 when they were funded, and we're almost maybe not 2019, maybe 2021. It was after I retired that I know it was funded. So I'm just trying to see, gosh, you guys, we're talking about doing some wonderful things for our communities. Where do we see where that project's happening, and how do we interface with those that are involved here, and to be proactive? I don't know where we are. I don't know what's on the target. I don't know who's being served or not. So thank you.
No, thank you, Barry, for your question. And definitely that's a valid question. And we are here to update you on that. So the project was selected in February, end of actually 2021, December. And Once we selected all these 18 projects we are funding right now using our CPF money, and Apache County project with ComNet is one of them. We forwarded all those projects to US Treasury. So all these projects, states can select it, but it's not technically up to us to do the final approval. So we wrote a description, we created a map and sent it to the US Treasury, because the capital funding project money came from them. And they went through single evaluation process for every single projects. So we got clearance from them like last end of 2022, and we drafted contract. We had to go through some legal and compliance before even we roll out that money. So as far as I know, the contract between Arizona Commerce Authority, State Broadband Office, and ComNet was already signed. It's in the permitting phase. So when we talk about the broadband deployment or infrastructure, the moment a project gets funded, the biggest step between the actual construction and the project funding is the permitting process. So once the ISP send this permitting and the engineering drawing to the local jurisdiction, it sits there for a while. And the reason is they need to make sure it's not cutting any existing gas line, water line, all sort of permitting, the pole attachment. Actual construction, frankly speaking, only takes 6 months to 8 months. It's the permitting process, which is the longest process along with the engineering. So I understand you are not seeing any activities on the ground, but we get quarterly, we get the update report from them, and we submit that to US Treasury as per the compliance. So we know that there are permitting activities going on right now, engineering design studies going on right now, and we are liable to collect those information and send it to the US Treasury. But of course, I am agreeing 100% with you that this information as a phase-wise need to be posted on the broadband website so that our community has full visibility that what's going on.
So just a quick question, and possibly and I'll relinquish. ComNet, as my understanding, is a middle mile provider. We don't have any last mile providers in Apache County, unless you consider Frontier a provider. And I don't know if anybody from Frontier is on here, but my apologies if I speak negatively about them. They have underserved our communities since they've been providing a service. So is ComNet going to become a last mile provider? We don't have, that's who you can buy your services from. That's the question.
That's ComNet, actually. Yes, they are. I understand that you are aware about the ERED project they received probably 3 years ago. If you're talking about the 2019 project, that was the ERED project. So what they did something really innovative, and we applaud that for their activities. With that ERED project, when they did the fiber connection for the schools and libraries, they actually added an extra conduit to make sure that in future if there is an additional broadband funding opportunity, they're using that extra conduit, which they build with their own funding, to connect the last mile household. And they leverage that when we put the project out from the capital funding project, and they got a funding. I think, if I'm not wrong, I have to check the number, but they are connecting approximately 14 to 1600 residential household and some businesses and some community anchor institute in St. John's, Eager, Springerville, and I think one more places. We could have expanded more on that project, but if you are not aware, there is already a federal funding effort on place in Apache and Navajo County. That is from one of the RDOF provider, Connection, and they are going to start the project next year to connect the RDOF areas. It's a separate census block areas with high-speed fiber connectivity lines. So you will have 2 last mile provider in your community pretty soon.
Okay, thank you. And I just would say my office wrote the E-rate grant that funded the schools. So I was county school superintendent at the time. And so that was a very important project to get completed. So yeah, I'll stop at that because I know others need to speak up. Thank you.
No, Barry, that was a great question, and happy to update you anytime. We work really closely with Joy, though.
So my name is Tracy Cox Ortega, and I'm new here, and I actually specialize in telecom, and I used to live in the White Mountains in the Lakeside area working for a mortgage department. 2008 moved down here, and I've been in IT ever since, and I've sat on some of the initiatives with Navajo and Apache County. But my understanding from working with providers, and I have a heat map that shows me everywhere where the providers are available throughout the United States, and I can granularly put that down to a specific building by address. But they all show that Frontier is the predominant carrier. In fact, the only carrier if I'm going through a landline in a terrestrial way. And so when we were just now talking about, I'm sorry, I think he said the name of it was ComNet. I understand I have several providers that can go on top of that and create that last mile relationship and help to manage that. But at the end of the day, they're capped by the capability of Frontier. So I'm just trying to understand when you're talking about ComNet, does that mean that they're going to be able to have an additional source, or they're still working on the Frontier line? Or I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Great question, Tracy. So if I can elaborate the question a little bit for everyone here in this discussion. Meanwhile, I will post the broadband map, the federal broadband map, Tracy, for you. This map basically defines the broadband availability in the address level. So you can type your address and you will see what kind of service you have, what's the threshold, and all this information. And if your address is eligible for BEAD funding. So I just posted that link. On your second question, I don't want to get into the confidential stuff with a private ISP, but all I can tell you, they're not using a separate middle mile from a different telecom, or they're using their own middle mile. That's what we are talking about with Barry. So one of the ERED project they covered the whole Apache County and directly connected with Navajo County. So they're using their own middle mile in partnership with some of the other backbone provider, which are the bigger network. So they're not dependent on Frontier. So they're doing their own stuff. And Frontier areas, mostly in Apache counties, are eligible for the $1 billion funding, what we have received here in the state. Well, not received, allocated. And we're hoping that someone will come and apply for a grant, because most of the Frontier connections are less than 25 meg by 3 meg. So all of these areas will be overbuilt with the fiber connection. I hope that answers your question, but I'm happy to take any additional question too.
Actually, it did. Thank you, because that I kind of read between the line a little bit on that, and I got it. And the only other thing that I wanted to go back and just digress a little bit was when Steve had mentioned the cybersecurity and all the resilience on that. That's one of the things that with this organization, I'd like to be able to help. I actually do free training for a lot of schools and education for end users to understand how to protect themselves cyber-wise. And with phones, it's really important to understand that too. So I'm really here to understand how I can be of service and be of help, and just to do whatever I can to be a value-added person that's literally lived in the White Mountains and understands those challenges personally. So I appreciate the opportunity to even be here and try to be of service. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Tracy, and especially we are all aware about that cyber attack happened in White Mountain Apache Tribe. So our plan, the BEAD deployment plan, if you read the volume 2, which we just posted the link, all the ISPs has to propose a standard cybersecurity plan that how they're going to protect their customer. So you will see more explanation, more steps and guideline into our plan going forward next year. But also Steve is working on some great initiative. He's putting together a team who will be building some of those standards around cybersecurity. So definitely love to hear from you, and let us know how exactly you are running those training process. We might use your help somewhere.
Sandeep, if I may, just to pick up on that just quickly, Tracy, as Sandeep mentioned, we are putting together a cybersecurity team, excuse me, to kind of figure out how we go about addressing a lot of the cybersecurity issues. You're more than welcome to participate with us. I did put my contact information in the chat, and you're welcome to give me a call, send me an email, and we'll get you added to our meetings and so forth.
Thank you.
Okay. And two, there will be other opportunities going forward with the digital equity plan that also discuss some of those aspects. So definitely keep your eye open for that. I just want to make sure that we are using the last few remaining moments here. Were there other comments directly related to volume 2 and potential digital equity activities that we can hear from you at this point? If we don't have enough time to get to everyone, I do want to just remind you about the feedback options on the website, and we'll drop the link one more time here at the end of the meeting just to make sure everybody can grab that. And our meetings are recorded and will be posted as well so that we can follow up later. So are there other comments related to volume 2 that anyone would like to share?
So Aaron, just a logistical thing, which I do at almost every meeting, is remind people that you can download and save the chat. So if there's good comments in there, or contacts and so forth, that you can save that chat. I don't know if you're planning to share that also, but it is available.
That is a signature statement at the end of any event or at the end of any webinar.
And I will say thank you, while folks are deciding if they'd like to say anything in the last few minutes, thank you very much for being so engaging and participating in this new format for us. It was an experiment that we wanted to try this time around to make sure that we could have a conversation like this. So thank you for engaging us this time.
So Aaron, if we've got a minute, I just want to say, which I should have done when I started earlier, but you guys have done, the broadband office is doing yeoman's work. You could probably use about another 10 people to help with all the work that you got to do. So I just really appreciate all the great work that you guys are doing and the efforts to get input and to collaborate with people. So I really want to acknowledge all of that.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Hey, Aaron.
I say thank you. I've been here for a week. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Hi, Elena.
Hi. It wouldn't be a meeting if I didn't say something. So here goes. So the only thing that I really wanted to point out, and again, as everybody mentioned, I mean, this is from our perspective as an organization that focuses on digital literacy and digital safety. And I know we talk about cybersecurity, and I think Steve even mentioned the term, cyber hygiene at some point is what he was calling it. And I put this in the chat because I feel really strongly about this. The idea of access and affordability is really the first step for people's digital journey. And if they're not aware of the trials and tribulations with being online, like fully online, whether it's with their families or just themselves, if they don't have the guardrails that they need to be safe and to have healthy experiences online, I almost feel like this work is not complete. Like, I feel like there's this digital journey that people start on by having the access, by getting, knowing that they can get the internet, being able to afford the internet. And it's like, I understand that the funds are very limited, but the idea of just putting a device in their hands or giving them broadband and then saying, see ya, I think is going to be so detrimental to all of this work that we're doing, that I just hope that there's opportunities, whether it's funding through this process or other state funding or something that we can pull together, that we put an emphasis on digital literacy. Because I just don't think that, like I said, I just don't think their journey is going to be complete if we just leave them hanging. So.
Totally agreed. Yes. Yes. Heard and understood, and it is key. Thank you. Okay, I just want to give one last chance here. It is almost the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And again, you know, the website has a space to provide additional feedback. We highly encourage you and all of your friends to read the documents that are up, and keep your eye on that page for future documents that come out of this office as well. And with that, unless there are any final comments. All right, we have a lot of digital literacy cheerleaders, and that is so important. Thank you so much. I love it. If there are no other comments, I would like to just say thank you one more time, and we will post this recording up on the website when it becomes available. And to echo Steve's point, if you would like to save the chat, in the chat box, if you click on the ellipsis, and then you should see an option to save chat if you would like to do that. Okay. All right, thanks so much. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.